Hello, and good afternoon. Welcome to all of you to this demo class on SAT. I can see that, yes, I can see Aryan, Vansh, and Ronak have joined through audio. There's this one student, Galaxy M32. I can't see them join through audio yet. Hopefully they will. So can you please give me a confirmation whether I am audible? If you can give me a confirmation in the chat, please. Great. Good afternoon, Ronak. Can the others hear me as well? Aryan and Vansh, am I audible to you? Hopefully, yes. Yes, that's great. Thank you, Vansh, for the confirmation. Yes, great. Wonderful. Okay. So I was actually expecting a few more students to join, and that's why I waited. But okay, hopefully they'll join in a couple of minutes. We can start. So before we go to the SAT test or we start the class, let me just give you a brief introduction of myself. Right. So I am Ashay. You can call me Ashay, sir. Please don't get it confused with Akshay. People usually do that. It's Ashay. And I will be your verbal faculty for this batch, right? I'll take care of the English section for this batch. I have taught in China for 1.5 years. I've also taught in Thailand for 3.5 years. I've been teaching in India ever since. And obviously my aim here is to ensure that all of you get that target score maybe a bit better in your SAT tests, right? And we will be joined by Ashish sir, who's going to take care of the math for all of you here in this batch. He'll join us soon, and he'll also then brief you a bit about himself later. So before we move ahead, because we are using the Zoom interface, there are just a few things that I would like to share with all of you. So just for today, we have to keep this security function opened. So we'll not be able to allow you to unmute yourselves just for today. So you'll not be able to do that, but you will be able to use the chat. Okay, so I would like all of you to use the chat as much as possible for your questions, queries. You can definitely use the chat box. So I'm just going to send a hello there. I just want to see if all of you are able to use it. Can you please reply to that message? I just want to ensure that all of you are able to use the chat so that you can ask your questions just for today through the chat. Hello, Dhruv. Great. Aryan, Shreya, hello to both of you. Okay, I hope Ronak had used the chat before, so that's fine. I hope Vansh is there as well. Yeah. Hopefully, yes. Yes. Okay, that's great. Okay. Fine, Ronak. Right. Okay. Not a problem. That's fine. So that's good. And I can see some more students are joining in as well. So use the chat for today. That's important, right? The second thing is please rename yourselves. That becomes easier then for me to address your questions or queries. So I can see most of you have got the right usernames so that I can address you by your names. But then there's just one person with Galaxy M32. So if you can just please unmute, that would be great. Rename, that would be great. Can you please rename yourselves Galaxy M32? Apart from that, I can see everyone has got the names right. So whoever it is, Galaxy M32, yes, Pratibha, great, wonderful. Thank you for that, Pratibha. Now it's better, so that if you have a question, I'll be able to answer that using your name. That's easier. All right, then. So without further ado, let's start with this demo class then. Right. So again, a warm welcome to all of you in this class. So I'm going to cover a number of different things today. Obviously, the focus is going to be on the SAT test, but there are a number of other things that I'll be covering as well. So, I'm hoping that by the end of today's class, both Ashish sir and I end up giving you the kind of information that you would want to expect from a demo class, right? So first, a bit of a basic, studying abroad or continuing to study in India, it is always a tricky decision to make, and because all of you are already here, so I would like to think that most of you have already decided that you would like to, go abroad and continue your further education there. But if there are a few doubts here and there, let me just pitch in a little bit. So if we're thinking of India, and we're thinking of top ranked institutes in India. So obviously you have the IITs and the IIMs and the NITs, all of these, right? So what are your chances of getting into one of these? I like to use statistics because they are the best measure of these things, you know. So according to statistics, only 2.23% of the students crack the entrance tests for IITs, NITs, or IIMs. Just 2.23. What happens to the rest then? 97.77, that's a huge number, right? So these people, they appear for these tests and just not able to crack them. So do we call them all failures? Obviously not. I mean, you can't just call 98% population a failure. That would be not doing justice to the country or the population, right? So obviously then, this is where Daniel Steele comes in. Why would you like to settle for India's best when you can actually go to the world's best, right? And I love this quote by Daniel Steele where she says, you know, never settle for less than what your dreams are. Somewhere, sometime, someday, somehow you will find them. So in terms of numbers as well, because we've started with statistics, let me give you a few more numbers. So if you look at the top Indian institutes in world rankings, here's the picture. This is according to the QS world rankings. So IIT Bombay is obviously currently #1 in India, followed by IISc Bangalore, then IIT Delhi, Madras, Kharagpur, right? So these are the top 5. But if you look at them in world rankings, sadly, none of them feature in the top 150, leave alone top 100. Right now, I'm not saying that they are bad institutes or poor institutes. They are the best when it comes to India. Obviously, they'll give you wonderful opportunities to grow and learn. But then in the global context, they're limiting themselves somewhere if these are the rankings. And so if you look at the top institutes around the world, so there it is. Again, according to QS World Rankings, MIT has been on top for the past 2 years. Stanford has been #2. Harvard has been #3. The top 3 have not changed in the past 2 years. You can see that. Caltech and Oxford, well, yes, there's a bit of an up and down, but they're still an integral part of the top 5. And if you go to the past records as well, you check the years, say 2019, 2018, mostly you'll find the top 5 dominated by these institutions, right? So the point is, if you can go to the world's best based on your profile, based on a skill set, based on a test score, there are chances that you may target some of these big institutions. Why would you like to settle for less, right? And then again, obviously, there are reasons why you should study abroad. Like I said, if you're here, you've already made that decision somewhere in your mind. But then there are so many different advantages if you really want to pursue your education abroad. And actually, this is a slide on which we can go for an entire hour. You know, I can speak for 1 hour on this, but I'll make it quick, right? So obviously, you get world-class education. Again, I'm not saying that you cannot get it in India. There's still good chance for you getting a world-class degree from India as well. But then again, the kind of structure that these courses have abroad obviously is very different, right? You get to study in a diverse environment with cutting-edge technology. Talking about technology, you get to read a lot about technology in India. You get to learn a lot about technology. Sadly, because we are still a developing country, you may not be able to get your hands on the recent or the latest technology. What happens in these developed nations when you go abroad, say a US or a UK, you actually use that technology. You don't just study about it, but you use it. And that makes a big difference, right? Obviously, the focus of these courses is on practical knowledge. Not that there's no theory, but mostly they'll be focused on skills, right, rather than knowledge. So that's very important. And again, there is flexibility to change your area of study. You would have heard people doing double masters from US, because it's okay if you've not really got that specialization fixed yet. While you're studying, you have to choose a specialization. And if you're somebody who's confused, you don't know what to choose, it's perfectly fine. These courses are so flexible that you get a number of different options and you can specialize in 2 different fields. So they're called double majors in the US language. And that is a big advantage as well, right? Obviously, the courses are driven by the industry demands. So they'll know what's in demand and they'll design the courses accordingly. So it's not like you're learning something else and then you go out for jobs and you find there's nothing relevant. Yeah. So all these courses are based on what the industry currently is doing. And obviously it's going to transform you as a person. If you study abroad, like I said, there's the environment is diverse. So you meet people from different backgrounds. There's people from a number of different countries, a number of different cultures. You see how they tackle their challenges. You see how they react to different situations. You learn a lot from that as well. So it's a totally transformative experience. And global citizenship will definitely add a huge value to your profile. So profile building is obviously a very important skill to have as well. If you have a stronger profile, you stand a better chance of securing a brighter future for yourself, right? And all of this is going to result in higher employability. Yeah, finally, that's what the aim should be, that you should be sellable. You as a product should be sellable in the market. It doesn't matter whether you want to work for a company or start something of your own. If you can market yourselves, you become a commodity that is, a favorite. So that is, like I said, that there are so many other aspects and reasons here as well, but that is the gist. This is what you get if you study abroad, right? Now, because we're talking about people and how you can actually benefit, so here's where these top people studied from. So talking about Elon Musk, he was just in the news in the past week. He bought this big share in Twitter, right? So he went to Stanford, right? You look at the ex-president of the US, Barack Obama, went to Columbia and Harvard. You look at Indian people as well. Sundar Pichai obviously is working in the US, but he went to IIT and then to Stanford, right? You look at somebody like Bill Gates, went to Harvard. Again, coming back to Indian people, you look at our own ex-prime minister, went to University of Cambridge and Oxford, Dr. Manmohan Singh. And you look at Ratan Tata, went to Cornell, Harvard. Right. So these universities, they create personalities. It's not just the education that you get there, or it's not just, the knowledge that you're going to acquire. It's also your way of life, how you actually become a leader while you go through this experience, this learning experience. And that is where these come in. And then obviously, this is why we are here today. SAT, the logo, I love this. It says achieve more. So that is your gateway to these high rank universities, this test called SAT. And let us then talk about this test as well. And let me tell you how it can help you achieve that dream, right? So let's talk about basics first. What is the SAT all about? So it stands for Scholastic Aptitude Test, right? And it is conducted by an organization called the College Board, right? If you want to find out more about the College Board, you can visit their website. It is www.collegeboard.org. You'll find more about the College Board here. You'll also find more about the SAT and AP's Advanced Placement Programs. You'll find more about that as well, right? So the validity of scores is 5 years, which is a big feature of the SAT test. Ideally, we tell students that you can start, let's say, at around grade 11. That would be a very good time to prepare and appear for the SAT test, because you're done with your 10th board exams. So you don't have a lot of worry. You're yet to appear for your 12th, or you're yet to start preparations for the 12th. So you have a very good space of, let's say, around 6 months or so, 6 to 7 months, where you don't have to bother much about the board exams, and you're basically in a space where you can focus on other things. So 11th grade would be an ideal grade to start preparation for and also appear for the SAT test. But we also get students who are in their 10th or 12th grades and have done well, managing both their board examinations as well as the SAT prep. So it's up to you. I mean, if you can cope up, it's fine, but 11th grade is what we would recommend usually, right? So validity is 5 years. You can take the test, then apply in all those 5 years whenever you want. The exam fee is currently $104. And obviously, when you register yourself on the College Board website, you pay the fee through that website, right? There are a number of different test centers as well for SAT test, and a number of different cities as well. You can see that there's a huge list of cities. If you want to look at the whole list of cities, again, you can go to this website and you'll find that in almost every major city in the country, you'll find a testing center, right? And the exam is usually conducted 4 times a year. So that's March, May, October, and December. But, after the COVID came in, a lot of test sessions were lost due to lockdowns, restrictions, and so on. So the SAT has also started offering some makeup tests, right? The College Board, that is. And this year, obviously, the March test is gone, right? So for May, we have the 7th of May, which is the official date. It has already been, announced. But then the other dates are all tentative dates. We don't know yet, but mostly they will have examinations in August. This is the 27th. So it doesn't feature in the 4. Like I said, that they've been offering additional tests due to lockdowns and everything. So this August test is a possibility. Might also have a test in October. Obviously, there's going to be, might be on the 1st. There might be a test on the 3rd of December as well. And if someone's planning for next year, so there are test dates for March 11th and May 6th. Again, these are all tentative dates, right? So August, October, December, March, and May are all tentative. May 7th, right now in this year, is the only date we know for certain. So how many of you are targeting the 7th of May? Can you tell me in the chat box? If, let's see, 7th of May. No one? Okay, that's good. Good in a way, because then you'll have a bit of a time to practice. So how many of you are looking for, let's say, August or October? No one's rushing. That's good. Okay, fine. Pravar, how much time does it require? That's also a good question, Dhruv. And it's a subjective question as well. But I would say if you're up for it, I think you should be able to finish your preparation at around 2.5 months, right? So that should ideally do it. Looking forward for June. But then, Aryan, there's no exam date for June. So you have 7th of May, and then there's only 7th of August, which is a tentative date. We're not yet sure, but mostly it will be a date in India. So you might then want to target the 27th of August, Aryan. Yeah, because there's no date for June, right? So anybody else who's targeting, let's say, an August or October date? So I've heard only from 2 people so far. What about the others? Do you have plans for later on, maybe October? Okay, so the June date is showing there, Aryan? Because when I checked, I could see only these tentative dates. Fine, okay, maybe, fine. Because they're coming up with these makeup exams due to the loss of pandemic. It is possible. These days, College Board is so unpredictable that they might give you newer dates. And if there are any new dates, once they are confirmed, obviously you'll get to know from us, right? So that could be a good slot for you as well, if there is at all an examination in the month of June. And I hope it is SAT and not PSAT, Aryan, right? Because there's a PSAT as well, which has different dates, right? So if there is an exam date in the month of June, this would be a right time to start preparation for that, right? So let's look at the exam structure then, right? So the SAT test is basically conducted over 3 hours. It's a 3-hour pen and paper test. You cannot take the SAT on a computer, all right? The total marks that you were awarded with, it's 1600. And this 1600 is divided in 2 equal sections of 800 each. So the first 800 obviously goes to the English. And there are 2 different tests here. There is a reading test and a writing and language test. So all the questions in the English test are multiple choice questions. You can see that 52 multiple choice questions for the reading test and 44 multiple choice questions for the writing and language test. Obviously, in terms of your time duration, the reading test is longer, just over 1 hour, that's 65 minutes. And the writing and language is shorter, just over half an hour, that's 35 minutes, right? So here you have more time and less questions. Here you have less time and more questions, right? So we'll talk about that in detail, don't worry. But these are the 2 tests under the English section. And there's also a math section worth 800 marks, where you have a section with calculator, where you're allowed to use calculator for computations, where you have 38 questions. They could be MCQs, they could be other different question types as well. Ashish sir is going to obviously walk you through this a bit later. You get around 55, so just under 1 hour for this, 55 minutes. And then there is another section where you're not allowed to use a calculator. The no calculator section is shorter, just 25 minutes, in which you have to solve or answer 20 questions. Right? That's the structure of the test. Okay, there's no essay in the SAT test. All right, and there are no subject SATs anymore. These were the changes that have happened to the tests last year. Yeah, so now there's no essay, there's no subject SAT, there is only this one SAT test that you get. Right, now talking about the English, then obviously we'll look at the reading section or the reading test and how it assesses your ability to comprehend the language. Right, so you get 65 minutes here and there are 52 multiple choice questions. Right, if we go into details, you'll find that there are 5 passages in this test. Right, these are 5 reading comprehensions, like unseen passages, right, where you can get 10 or 11 questions per passage. So because there are 52 questions, you'll have 3 passages with 10 questions each. 3 multiplied by 10, that's 20. And then you'll have 2 passages with 11 questions each, that's 22. So 30 and 22, you'll get your 52 questions this way, right? You should spend approximately 13 minutes per passage. Obviously, it's not the time that you should take for reading and answering only. There is a third activity that you must do. I'll talk about that as well. So basically, if you divide 65 minutes by 5 passages, 65 by 5, so you get 13 minutes per passage. You know, that's like the average length. So we'll talk about that a bit in detail, don't worry. Now, there are 5 passages, but there are only 4 types, right? So these passages, they come from a number of different areas, basically. So you'll find that there is one passage which is based on US or world literature. Now, the word literature itself is a bit of a scary word. And I see a lot of students get nervous when they're like, oh, wow, I have to read a literature passage. But don't worry, it's usually, I'm using the word usually here, usually it's a modern literature passage and not Shakespeare English. Mostly they'll try and focus on English around 18th, 19th, 20th centuries. Rarely they do go to the Shakespeare era as well. 17th century could be a possibility, but mostly it's modern English. So you don't need to really worry much about it. Then you have one passage which is either historical or political, right? So this basically is the trickiest passage for most of the students who appear for the SAT test. Now, if you get a historical passage, you could be lucky because the historical passages are based on global conversations. So these global conversations are nothing but speeches made by great people, the ex-presidents of the United States. They could be world leaders like Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi, right? Made in their own times, which were meant for a larger section of population, not for a one specific section of the society. So these could be the speeches. They'll give you a part of the speech, obviously. They'll not give you the entire speech. They'll give you just one part of it. And then you'll have to read that and you'll have to answer the questions. But if you get a political passage, it might be a bit more tricky because political passages are based on founding documents. And founding documents are the Constitution of the United States and the amendments which are made to it. So the Bill of Rights, as it is called. So it's mostly based on that. So do you have any idea related to this particular topic? Do you have any idea about the Constitution of the US or the Bill of Rights? Anyone? Any idea? Because see, if your answer is no, that's fine. This is why we're going to help you here, right? I just wanted to check if someone has maybe read a bit about their constitution or how the rights are assigned to people, things like that. Any idea, anybody? Wow, that's a big silence. So I'll no. Okay, I'll take it as a no from the others as well. And don't worry, right? We'll have enough practice for all of you so that at least you get used to the kind of language that they use these passages and, you know, the kind of complex topics that they cover as well, right? So you'll have enough preparation for that. All right. Prabha, don't worry. We'll go through the practice as well so that you get used to that kind of information. right? Then there is another section, and that is social studies. So social studies is not very different from what all of you've done in your school days, right? Say grade 9, 10th. If you had social studies in grade 11, it would be similar in terms of the language used. It would be similar. But again, the focus of these social studies passages is mostly on the US, mostly, right? And therefore it can get a little tricky sometimes to understand the passages in full, or becomes a bit difficult to relate with the passages, in comparison to what you've done in your standards 9, 10, 11. So that could be a bit of a challenge. And then finally you have two passages that come from the science field. Now these could be any different kinds of sciences. Yeah. And you get random science topics with very complex information. A lot of information is there. You have to dig it out, and then answer the questions. So these are your 5 types of passages, and they're usually scattered around in 1 or 2 different structures in the SAT test. So there are only 4 types, and there are only 5 passages. You'll never find a 5th passage type on the SAT test. You'll never find more than 5 passages or less than 5 passages as well, right? Now talking about the questions, so there are a number of different question types in the reading test. So the first type is the big picture questions, right? Big picture questions ask you to summarize a paragraph or the entire passage. There are 11 such questions with around 21% weightage. Then you have evidence support questions as well, and there are 10 such questions. So evidence support questions can become a bit tricky, because what happens is, suppose you have question number 4, right? You're solving question number 4. There's a question and A, B, C, D, 4 options. So you read the passage and you're like, okay, I'm going with option C. So you mark C as your answer. You go to question number 5, and question 5 will ask you, where is the proof? Where is the proof that C was the answer? So then again, you have to go back to the passage and you read those lines and you say, oh, the proof comes from line number 4, 5, 6. And then you mark that. So these are evidence support questions. There are 10 such questions there, right? There are also questions on vocabulary, but you're lucky it's not any random words. They are vocabulary in context questions. So you always have a sentence that you can read and refer to, and then choose which meaning is the best or the ideal for the situation. There are 8 such questions. Usually there are 1 or 2 questions per passage, right? Then you have the little detail, which is exactly opposite of the big picture. These questions, they ask you about a very specific topic, concept, idea. So you have to go specifically to that portion of the passage and then extract the answer, right? You also have inference questions, where you have to draw your own conclusions based on the knowledge that is available in the passages. And there are 5 such questions. Usually there's 1 in every passage, usually. Right? You also have the function questions. So this is, again, there are 5. So usually 1 every passage. Function is why has the author used this kind of a language, or why this example, or what is he trying to prove? So the author's technique, is what function is. It's all about. So 5 questions in that. You also have data reasoning questions, which are based on graphics. So in the reading test, you'll find that there are some graphics as well. And there would be questions which ask you information, or ask your observation from the graphics. So there are 2 graphics in the reading test, right? 1 bar graph, line graph, pie chart, table could be there in one of the social studies passages and 1 science passage. So there are 2, right? 2 graphics and 5 questions. You also have 1 analogy question, usually in the historical passage, if you get 1. If you get a political passage, you don't get this question. If you get a historical passage, you'll get this, right? And if you get the, obviously author's technique question is mostly asked in the literature passage. So there's 1 question on that, right? If you don't get the history passage, then they'll not give you an analogy question, but they might give you an additional function question. So that could be there. So the total number of questions you'll find, right, there are 52, and this is roughly the 100% weightage that you're looking at, right? So if we talk about questions here, all the questions are multiple choice questions. Every question has 4 options, and you have to choose one of the 4, right? There's no negative marking, so you're free to guess, but obviously we'll try and ensure that you don't need to guess on your SAT test. But then again, you should not leave anything blank. If you get it right, you get it right. If you don't, you don't. It's okay. There's no negative marking. And this is it. The activity that I was referring to, activity number 3. So you have to read the passages, you have to find your answers, and finally, you must fill the correct bubbles in the answer sheet. So they'll give you a question booklet and they'll give you an answer sheet. There are 2 different booklets that they give you. So you have to find your answers here in the question booklet, but then you have to fill that on the answer sheet. With a pencil, you have to draw the bubbles there, right? So you need to keep some time for this activity as well. And therefore, you should not spend all the 13 minutes on just finding the answers. You should ideally be able to finish in around 11 and a half minutes so that you get 1.5 minutes to just fill these bubbles, right? And then we'll move on to the writing and language test. But are there any questions related to the reading test before we move on? Anyone? Any questions so far? Can't see any. Fine. So let's move on to the writing and language. And this is a shorter test, right? So it's just 35 minutes, just over half an hour. And you get 44 questions here. So more questions, less time, right? Here you get 4 passages and the distribution of questions is very easy. It's 11 questions per passage, right? 4 into 11, you get 44. And again, approximately 9 minutes. So 35 divided by 4, close to 9, right? 8.75. Right. So approximately 9 minutes per passage. But then again, you have that activity here as well. So ideally 7.5, 8 minutes max per passage. Right. These are shorter passages, so you don't have to worry much about their length. In the reading section or the reading test, you get around 700 word passages. So one passage is around 700 word long. You get 5 such passages. So somewhere around 3,500 words in that 1 hour. So bit too much. Right. And here you get around 400 word passages, 4 of them. So 2,500 words, somewhere around that. Right. So there are a different number of passage types here as well. So 4 passages come from 4 different walks of life. One of these passages is a careers passage. Careers passage will talk about trends or debates in major fields like business or technology or even healthcare for that matter. It will explore what kind of professionals are working in these sectors and what changes have happened, how their jobs have changed, what responsibilities they have, things like that. They'll deal with a number of different things related to the career. There's a passage on social studies as well, which is not very different from the one that you will read in the reading test. It's just a bit shorter and could be a bit more precise. So this might include history or anthropology or psychology or political science as well, sociology, a number of different areas from social studies, right? Then you also get a passage on humanity, right? And this might focus on arts and literature. It might feature an author. It could describe trends in poetry or prose or art, music, dance, right? So again, here you don't have to read poetry. Don't worry about that. It's a passage. It's not a poem. It's a passage which is written about an artist or an architecture or, just trends in these different fields in humanity, right? And finally, you also have a passage from sciences. So this is going to explore topics again in maybe earth science or biology or chemistry or physics, could be anything, right? So 4 different passages, they come from 4 different areas or walks of life. In terms of questions here, so you don't have a lot of different question types like you had for the reading test. Here, the question types are limited. So you still have the command of evidence questions here. So if what happens in the reading test is that you read the comprehension and based on the questions, you go to the specific section, you find your answer, right? But in this test, in the writing and language test, your job is to improve the passage. So maybe there are some logical mistakes in the passage. Maybe there are some grammatical mistakes in the passage, some linguistic errors in the passage. So your job is to find those errors and then rectify them using the options. So if you're rectifying a mistake, why? Where is the proof that this needs to change? So there would be a few questions on that as well, command of evidence. Then there are questions again on vocabulary, that's words in context. Right? There are some questions on analysis. So these questions could come up in history or social studies passages and also in the science passage, right? You also have expression of ideas. That's how logically clear are the author's thoughts. if the thought process is not clear and the reader is not able to understand clearly, we say that the message is not conveyed. So if you find that there are any errors in conveying the message, obviously that question will fall under this type, expression of ideas, and then obviously standard English conventions. So this is how a statement should be written. So we're talking about grammar, punctuation, word types, all of those errors would be considered under standard English conventions. So these are the 5 different types of questions that you'll find in the writing test. Like I said, your job here is to improve the passage or make it better and easier to understand, right? So those are the questions. And again, in terms of their nature, all of them again are going to be MCQs, right? Again, there's no negative marking involved here. And obviously, you have to use this answer sheet again and fill all the bubbles that correspond to the correct answer. So these are the things that you'll have to keep in mind when you're approaching the SAT test or appearing for the exam. These are very, very important aspects of the test, right? So everything is MCQ in the English section. There's no negative marking whatsoever. You are obviously allowed this freedom to guess. Try and not, right? We'll look at the strategies there as well, and a number of different areas. So my takeaway as a student from this particular section so far would be that, okay, I need to start reading about a number of different things. So if I'm somebody who's reading a lot of novels, well, it's okay, but then novels can help me only a little bit on the SAT test. That is the literature passage in the reading. Yeah, but I would like to have a bit more of a variety in my reading resources so that I get familiar to the kind of language that I'm going to get in the SAT test. It's just the different kinds of language that you're going to see, because you'll find that a careers passage uses a very different language. The science passage will use a very different language. Social studies, again, a very different language, although it's all English, but the way in which thoughts are expressed and developed, it's very, very different in all those fields. Right. So any questions then, any specific questions related to the English section of the SAT test? Anyone? Any doubts, any queries, anything at all? Anything? No? All right. Okay. So I'll still be there. I'll be joined in the meeting, but we also have Ashish sir who has joined us, and he's going to take care of the math section for you. So Ashish sir, I request you to take over the session and address students now. Thank you. Ashish sir.
1 second, sir. 1 second.
Yes, sure, sir. No problem.
So can you see the screen? Can you see my screen?
No, sir. I can't yet. I mean, there's something blurry over there, but I can't see the content of the screen. Yes, now I can see the paper. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll use the paper in a few minutes.
Sure,
okay.
Sure, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish Makhijani. I'll take care of your SAT math. As Ashish sir said, that the entire paper is of 1600 marks, of which 800 belongs to this math section. In SAT math, there are 2 portions. One is calculator portion, where you'll get 55 minutes to solve 38 questions. And the second section is no calculator portion, where you'll get 20 questions for which you'll be allotted 25 minutes. Right. So in all, you'll get 58 questions and a total time of 80 minutes. The syllabus is what we have learned in our school days. Right. You get questions. So basically, the entire syllabus is divided into 4 sections. First is Heart of Algebra. where we'll talk about the linear equations. Majorly, the questions are asked from linear equations, how to form equation. Maybe a word problem is given. You have to answer that word problem. We'll talk about the equation of line, slope of line, how to form equation of line. So basically, in this section, the questions are more or less from linear equations. And out of 58 questions, 19 questions are asked from this section only, heart of algebra, this category. 19 questions. The second category is problem solving and data analysis, where you'll get questions from percentages, profit and loss, ratio, proportion, speed, time, and distance. So generally, these are questions where you will be allowed to use calculator. So these questions generally are asked in the calculator portion, where you have a calci in your hand to answer these questions. And these are problem solving questions, means there will be complex calculations involved in in these questions. Almost 17 questions are asked from this category. So 19 from the first category and 17 from this category. The third section, the third category is passport to advanced math. You get questions from complex equations like quadratic equations, cubic equations. You'll definitely get a question on parabola. I've seen questions asking on parabola in almost every exam. So functions, you'll get questions from functions in this category. So basically, the complex equations, the questions from complex equations are asked in this category. Almost 14-15 questions are asked from this category. So 19 from the first section, 17 from the second, and almost 15 from the third category. The last category is, the last section is additional topics in math. You do get questions from geometry, like triangles, circles, solids, cube, cuboid, cylinder. You do get questions from these sections as well. Not many questions are asked from this category. Maybe 6 or 7 questions are asked from this category. A lot of times what I have seen, that students, if they're not comfortable with geometry, they see not many questions are asked from this section. So can we leave this section? If somebody is not comfortable with equations, they say that can we leave this section? Not at all. You only have 58 questions and the competition is very high, and you can't afford to leave any section. That's why we are here. We'll take care of each and every section. If you are not comfortable with the geometry part, we'll make sure that with time you practice the questions of geometry, and gradually you will improve in that section, right? What kind of questions are asked? So basically you'll be asked two types of questions. First is a multiple choice question, where a question is asked and you have 4 options for that question. Like, look at this question: x minus 1 upon 3 is equal to k, and k is equal to 3. What is the value of x? So if you substitute k equal to 3, it's quite simple. If you know, there is no need to explain this on the writing pad. If you put k equal to 3, and if you cross multiply, 3 3s are 9, so x is equal to 10, right? So you'll mark option D. This is first type of question, where you do have options available in front of you. The second type of question, where you do not have options. You have to write down the answer in the image shown on the right hand side. In the that grid is shown on the right hand side, you have to write down your answer. Like, for example, for this question, t square minus 4 is equal to 0. What is the value of t? So if you reciprocate minus 4 on the right hand side, that becomes plus 4, right? So t square is equal to 4. T is either plus 2 or minus 2, because 2 ka square is 4 as well as minus 2 ka square is 4, right? But since t is greater than 0, your answer is 2. So what you'll do, you'll write down 2 in the first row. Look at on the right hand side, that grid. You'll write down 2 in the first row, anywhere you want, whether in the first column or second, third, wherever you want. And you'll encircle 2. You'll bubble that 2 number. Suppose if your answer is 2.15, so write 2, encircle 2, then point, decimal, encircle decimal, 1, encircle 1, and then 5, right? So this is second type of question where options are not available. And there's one more type of question called data interpretation question. Data interpretation. So this question is asked under problem solving and data analysis, where data will be given in the form of maybe pie chart or a bar graph or a line graph or in tabular form, and you have to answer a couple of questions based on that. So this is an example from the SAT paper I've taken. Look at this question in front of you. The data is given in the form of a table. What people do, they read the entire data and end up wasting their time. I would recommend you to not read the entire data, jump to the main question. The main question is, which of the following best approximate? Obviously you'll overlook what has been given, you'll do that part, but you'll not look for the each and every detail given in the table. The main question is, which of the following best approximates the average rate of change in the annual budget for the agriculture and natural resources in Kansas from 2008 to 2010? You just have to focus on the first program, that is agriculture and natural resources. So what's the value? What's the budget for agriculture and natural resources in 2008? If you look at the table, it's 35870. It's 3,58,708. Right? Calculator is allowed for this question. There's no doubt about it. You do get, as I said, you get questions of problem solving and data analysis in the calculator portion. So you will be allowed to use Kelsey for this question, but you have 38 questions in calculator portion, and you can't use Kelsey for each and every question. Although calculations are involved, but you can't use Kelsey for each and every question. You have to train yourself so that you use less amount of calculator in the exam. Using Kelsey, you're wasting your time. You have to pick up the Kelsey and do the calculations. If beg your pardon. So can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
I can't see the screen. I can't see that.
Okay, I'll just share it again, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So in this question, what's the budget for agriculture and natural resources in 2008? It's 3,58,000. So it's 350, around 350 approximately. And what's the budget in 2010 for the same program? It's 488,106. So in 2008, the budget is around 358, and in 2010, the budget is around 488. At 358, 488. It's a very simple difference. 350 to 480. 350 to 480, there's a difference of 130, right? And you have been asked to find out the average rate of change. What is average? Average means you will divide by the number of years, right? So 2008 to 2009 is 1 year. 2009 to 2010 is second year. So you have a gap of total 2 years, right? So 2008 to 2010, we have a change of 130, 480 minus 350, 130 by 2. 130 divided by 2 is 65 approximately. Look at option B. It's 65,000 of 1,000 per year. See, we do have this question in our exercise when we'll start our classroom training. And I obviously I will have a writing pad to explain this. Right now, I'm just giving an idea. You will get these kind of questions where there's a huge data. First, you do not have to read the entire data to waste your time. Second, although calculator is allowed for this question, you have to train yourself that you do not use Kelsey so that you save your time. So the calculation is very simple in this question. 2008, the figure is 358. In 2010, the figure is 488. 350 to 480, 35 to 48. 350 to 480, the difference is 130. 130 divided by 2, because we are finding average. 130 divided by 2, the answer is approximately 65, which is option B. I'll mark option B. and then move ahead, right? So this is how we'll be solving a lot of questions of this nature. Okay, let me give you a couple of questions uh, uh, which have been asked in the past exam, and let's see how many of you are able to solve this. As I said, see, you get questions from what we have learned in our school days, but the level of difficulty will be much higher what we have learned. I mean, you will get questions from geometry, but you can't get those exact questions what we have learned in our school days, right? You get tricky questions, the questions will be manipulated. Like, look at this question. It's a very, very basic question. I don't know how many of you know this. Two dimensions of a triangle are 5 centimeter and 8 centimeter. So there's a triangle whose two dimensions are given to be 5 centimeter and 8 centimeter. What is the maximum possible integral length of the third side? Integral length means the length is an integer value, 5, 6, 7, 8. Decimal values are not allowed. You can't say 5.6 or 12.7. You can't say this. What is the maximum possible integral length of third side? Anybody who can answer this? Is a very basic question of triangles. Whenever you start learning triangles, there was a rule. You have to use that rule. The first rule while learning triangles, you have to apply that rule. Two dimensions of a triangle are given to be 5 centimeter and 8 centimeter. What could be the integral length of the third side? Whose two dimensions again, this is 5 centimeter, let's say, and this is 8 centimeter. What could be the maximum length of this third side? So there was a rule in triangles. The first rule by learning triangle was sum of any two sides of a triangle, sum of any two sides of a triangle must be greater than third side. Sum of any two sides of a triangle must be greater than third side. This is the rule. किसी भी दो sides का sum should be greater than the third side. Like suppose if this is a triangle where the three sides are A, B, C. So the rule says sum of any two sides, A plus B, should be greater than the third side C. B plus C should be greater than third side A, or A plus C should be greater than third side B. Sum of any two sides must be greater than the third side. So here, if this third side is X, let's say, then sum of these two sides, 5 plus 8, should be greater than X. So 13 is greater than X, or you can say that X is less than 13. So this third side has to be less than 13. But now you can't say 12.99 or 12.9 because I have to take an integral value. So less than 13, what is the integer less than 13? Integer value less than 13 is 12. So the maximum integral length of third side is 12 centimeter. It can't be more than 12 because sum of these two sides should be greater, and the sum of these two sides is 13. So 13 has to be greater than this side. So this has to be 12. You can't take 13 as well, right? A very basic question of triangles. But see, if you weren't aware of this rule, you wouldn't have been able to solve this. And I have seen this question in the SAT paper, right? And not just in SAT exam, in a couple of exams. Let me give you one more question of percentages. You do get questions from percentages, as I said, in problem solving and data analysis. A very, very basic question. Again, I've seen in the exam. You must have seen those freebies given by these different store owners. So there's a store which is giving an offer of buy two, get three free. Must have seen such offers. Buy two, get two free, buy two, get one free. So there's an offer which says buy two, get three free. Have you ever thought of how much discount the shopkeeper or the store is giving you? What's the discount percentage? I mean, see, if the shopkeeper says I'm giving you a 50% discount, you know what's 50%. You're paying half of what you need to pay. If the shopkeeper is giving you 40% discount, you're paying 40% less what you had to pay, right? But in this case, the shopkeeper is not directly telling you how much discount is he giving you. He's giving you an offer, buy two, get three free. Anyone who can answer this? It's a question from percentages. Rather, to be precisely, it's a question from profit and loss. Profit and loss is an application of percentage anyways. Buy two, get three free. A lot of people, give me answer more than 100%. When I saw the options for this question, the options were, let me give you the options. The options were 80%. Option B was 150%. Option C is 60%. Option D was something 40%. So there was this option B 150%, and a lot of people came up with this answer. Hold on a second, it's getting blurred. Hold on. This 150%. This is definitely not the answer. A lot of people think कि दो खरीदने पे तीन free मिल रहा है. So there's a huge discount. It's not like that. It's not 150%. I understand. 100% discount means the shopkeeper is giving you the item in free. You're getting it free. 100% discount. You do not have to pay anything. 100% discount. 150% discount means you're getting that item in free, and also the shopkeeper is giving you money. That's not possible. Discount is never over 100%. First of all, the answer is 60%. Let me tell you why. Suppose you went to a shop and you have to buy 5 shirts, let's say, and let the MRP of one shirt be, let the MRP of one shirt be 100 rupees, for example. Let the MRP of one shirt be 100 rupees. So because you have to buy 5 shirts, MRP of 5 shirts will be 500. MRP is maximum retail price. As a customer, you only know the MRP, that tag price, right? Let's say the MRP of 5 shirts is 500. You went to the billing counter and you're about to pay 500, but the salesperson says, sir, because you bought 2 shirts, we are giving you 3 free. So you just have to pay for 2 shirts. I paid for 2 shirts. I paid for 2 shirts. I paid just 200 rupees. And logically, I got how much discount? I got a discount of 300 rupees. I had to pay 500, but I paid 200. So I got a discount of 300. Discount percentage. See, whenever you're finding percentage now, you need to have a denominator. I mean, suppose if you're finding your marks percentage, how do you find marks percentage? Marks upon total marks, right? Marks obtained upon total marks. Whenever you're finding percentage, you need to have a denominator. So the shopkeeper is giving me a discount of 300. 300 ka discount kis pe? 500. Discount of 300 on 500 into 100%, which says it's 60%. But see, if you search the solutions on different sources, you'll get a solution like this. I do not use this approach. What I tell my students, buy 2, get 3 free. How many articles will you bring home? You'll bring 5 articles home, right? Buy 2, get 3 free. You have 5 items, right? Buy 2, get 3 free. And out of these 5, how many are free? 3 are free. So you're getting a discount of 3 by 5. 3 by 5 into 100% because you're finding a percentage. 3 by 5, 1 time, 20 times. So the answer is 60%. Suppose if the offer is buy 2, get 2 free. You're bringing 4 items, and out of 4, 2 are free. So 2 by 4. 2 by 4 means there's a 50% discount, right? So what I wanted to tell you is you have these are questions which have been asked in the past exams, and you get questions from what we have learned in a school test, but not exactly the same type of questions, not the same level of difficulty. You'll have much higher difficulty level what we have learned in our school days. So, and this is what we are going to do in our classroom training. First, we'll understand the conceptual part and we'll try to solve a lot of questions to improve our speed, to improve our calculations. We'll try to not use Kelsey in a lot of questions, so that our calculations we improve our calculation part. And see, you have 58 questions. If you're wondering, sir, what if I'm able to solve 50 questions correctly? That's not bad, but because there's a lot of competition around you, according to me, you have to solve more than 50 questions correctly, maybe 50 to 53, to get a very good score and to get a very good university. Okay. So if you're thinking, sir, can I afford to leave this section? No, you can't afford to leave any section. You have to work very hard for each and every section. Agar koi section difficult lagta hai, so you have to work harder for that section, right? Then okay. I hope to see you in the classroom where we'll talk about these many questions like these in our classroom training, and we'll learn new things in our classroom training. Thank you. Over to Ashish, sir. If you have any queries regarding maths, I'm here only. You can ask me. Right now, I'm handing Ashish, sir.
Thank you, sir. And that is there any question, query, doubt related to maths so that sir can still answer it? Feel free. If you know there are any questions, you can definitely ask in the chat box. Because there are just a couple of other things that I would like to talk about, and then we can call it a day, right? So I can't see any questions for now, right? So obviously you've met both of us basically. You've seen how the classes are going to go ahead, right? And let me just tell you what else you're going to get if you decide to enroll with us. So obviously you're going to get Ashish sir and I as your faculty, and we do have hundreds of success stories behind us. We've got students who've consistently scored on a higher level in the SAT test, and it can be done. You just need the right approach, and we're going to help you all get in that particular zone and use that approach on a regular basis so that you get where you want to. Right. Obviously, we'll be sharing a lot of tips, tricks, and techniques for each and every question type for both the English as well as the math section of this test. We'll be providing you with up-to-date study material as well, which will target every area of the test so that no weaknesses are left behind. And it's going to be a very interactive classroom. So like just for today, you are not able to unmute yourselves, but that won't be the case during the classes. During the classes, you'll have the freedom to unmute and ask your questions whenever you want to. You can raise your hands and make a point if you want to. So there's that freedom that's going to be there. You get 7 full-length mock tests at the end of the batch. This is a very important aspect of this course. So once you're done with all your syllabus, you get 7 tests. And we share a timetable with you. In that timetable, you have to ensure that you're solving those tests and sharing your answers. And you also get your evaluations for your tests. So you get to know where you stand in terms of your SAT preparation, and 7 tests. So that gives you a wonderful opportunity to actually improve one after the other. So if you're not doing well in say one section, you can obviously then try and focus more on that and do better in that second mock test when you're taking the second one. So that is also going to help you to ensure that you get a high score in the test. So talking about the schedule of the class, classes would be held regularly, usually from Monday to Friday. It's just in case of, let's say, a student who's having to appear for this test earlier. Sometimes we have classes on Saturdays, but mostly they're Monday to Friday, right? English and math classes would be held on alternate days. So if today is your math, tomorrow would be English and so on, right? The timing of this batch is going to be 2:30 to 4 p.m. And we can change that just a little bit if there are any school clashes or timing clashes. Maybe we can prepone it a little bit from 2 to 3:30 if you want to. We can postpone it a little bit from 3 to 4:30 if you want to. And that's it. That is the slot that we have. So that is also possible. Obviously, all the classes are going to be recorded. Like even with this demo class, this is also being recorded. Every class is going to be recorded, and you will get the links for recorded classes as well. So if you miss out on something due to a network issue or some emergency and you're not able to attend the class that day, it's fine. You can still go through the recording, and when you come to the next class, you can then have your questions and queries for us. We'll be more than happy to address them for you, right? And this class is actually, it's developed focused on this particular target score that you all have. So it's a targeted class structure to ensure high score. We'll focus on the things where usually students miss out on, right? Obviously, we'll be going through all the usual things that you need to know about the SAT, but the most important aspects of the test, which sometimes get lagged behind. So we'll also focus on that, and we'll ensure that you're well prepared before you appear for your test. And regular classes for this batch obviously are going to start from Monday, that is 11th of April at 2:30. I think Monday we have the English class, and maybe Tuesday you might have math. So in the first week, we'll not be having all the 5 days of classes, maybe just a couple of days. And then next week onwards, that is from the week starting on 18th of April. So that week onwards, we'll have your regular classes then. Yes, I can definitely. The passage slides, so the reading section, right? The types of passages, is that what you're asking? Types of passages for the reading test and the writing and language test? Yes, okay, sure, I can definitely. So just give me a moment. I'll just try and load those slides, and then I can share here. Just a minute. All right, so first I will share the passage types for the reading test. Okay, and then we'll go to the writing and language. Just a minute. Here it is. Can you see the passage types for reading? So this is for the reading test. You get one from US world literature, you get one historical political passage, you get one social studies, and 2 science, in not this order. There is a different order, but these are the types, right? And when it comes to writing and language tests, so that's a bit different again. These are the passage types for writing and language, right? So for writing and language, you get passages from careers, social studies, humanity, and science. Right? So these are the 4 passage types in the writing and language test, right? Any other questions or queries then? Because we've actually gone through all that we wanted to, right? And a big thank you to all of you for being such a lovely audience and for these questions as well, but no problem. I would definitely like to answer your questions if there are any. Even if there are any questions for math section, Ashish sir is also there with us. So if you have any doubts, queries, anyone? Anything at all? No? Okay. Right, not a problem. So it was a pleasure interacting with all of you today, and we'll hope to see most of you there in the class on Monday. Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. Hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye. Welcome. Bye-bye. Thank you.